And here we are, back again. Today we're going to be gluing in the pieces. And you can see that all the holes have been cut. All the holes have been cut, and there's still a little bit of sawdust here, which I'm just going to move across, get rid of, because that's going to get in the way of a nice solid glue. So I'm just going to quickly rub that off. Just a little bit here and there, not much. I'm just using a little tiny screwdriver, and just a little blade. I'm just using that to kind of get in there and get some of the pieces that the cam machine left behind. It doesn't usually leave much, but a little bit. And you can see these are very intricate, detailed holes. This is probably the thing I like about cam machines the best, is not so much the cutting of the pieces. That really doesn't take too much by hand, but the cutting of the hole, usually this is such a long process. It's like cut, check, fit, change, get upset because you left a little bit more filler than you wanted. This you don't have to worry about. The hole is going to be perfect every time. As a matter of fact, you can see here's a little raven that goes up in the corner, and that piece fits in that little raven hole absolutely perfectly. You couldn't ask for anything better than that. That's just wonderful. So what I'm going to use today is I'm using a two-part epoxy. Matter of fact, this fits in so good I'm having a little hard time getting it out. I'm using a two-part epoxy. That's the stuff right there that I use. It's made by Super Glue Corporation, and I've had a hard time getting this to the stores. This is not a commercial for Super Glue. I use it. This is not an endorsement. I just use it. But it's 30-minute, and it's two-part epoxy, and this is probably some of the best stuff I've found. And it's really not that expensive, but kind of hard to find at different stores. And I end up buying it from the company, but the only problem is, in most people's case, I buy it by the case. And that's the only way they'll sell it, which for me isn't a problem, because I use so much of it that a case for me is I'm going to go through a case in 3 weeks. So, but for most people, if you just need like one tube, it might be a little hard to find that stuff. You can get it online, but there's always like a wait. But it really is good stuff, and it's cheap. It's like, I don't know, $2.25 a tube or something. So I'm just going to take a Dremel with a rotate it with a little drum on the end, and I'm going to just give myself some sawdust. Speed that Dremel up a little bit. Okay, you don't need a lot, just a little bit. And now I got to be strategic here, because this thing is complex enough. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it all in one pass of glue. So I'm going to have to be a little strategic in the way I'm putting the pieces in. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build it up from the bottom. And I'm going to put this wolf in later, because the wolf will be easy to do and easy to keep off. And I'm going to kind of build toward the middle here. But I'm going to start out real quick with the raven up here, because that's a real easy, quick fix. And I'll probably put some of this and then like start here and kind of build my way toward the middle. Because when I get to the middle, I want to make sure everything fits. And you never know. Pieces slide around a little bit. Weird things happen. Sometimes you can get to the middle and things don't fit. So I'm just going to squeeze out this two-part epoxy. Okay. This wasn't capped. It's a little sticky there at the front. I'm just going to squeeze out the rest of that tube, which is probably enough to do, not all of it, but some of it. And I'm just going to use the little popsicle stick it comes with. Stir it up for about 30 seconds. And I put a tear in my wax paper here, and the stuff is getting onto the table. Okay. By the way, take off any jewelry or if this stuff gets on your clothes, it's done. I'm wearing a really crappy shirt here today. because I don't care. If it gets on the shirt, it's just not going to matter. But you do want to use clothes you totally don't care about. If this epoxy gets on your jewelry or your clothes, throw it away. You'll never get it off. Because this stuff is not like wood glue where it comes off with water, soap and water. This only comes off with heat. And I just put it in there, press that piece in, and that piece is in there, ready to dry. And once this puppy dries, the beauty of epoxy too is it's like forever. It's never going anywhere. I actually had a piece one time, a little keychain I made a guy, and he lost it, and he was very upset because he lost it. It was very special to him, and he lost it, and it was found 3 months later in a church parking lot. And in the church parking lot, it had been run over by a truck and had been sitting in a snowbank for 3 months. Anyway, he, fearing the worst, he didn't even try to clean it because he wasn't sure what was going to happen. Fearing the worst, he sent it to me to say, you know, can you fix it? It is special to me, can you fix it? So I took a look at it, and I found out that all the pieces were intact. Now, one of the pieces had popped out or anything. By the way, I'm taking the pieces right off of that proofing board I made in the last step. None of the pieces of this keychain had fallen out or had been damaged in any way. They were just perfect. All I had to do was sand it down, add a little bit of stain to it to bring the color of the wood back, because the wood had turned gray from all the water. So I just added a little bit of stain to recolor it just a little bit, and it was good as new. And it looked just beautiful. And that's why people ask me why I use epoxy over some other methods, and that's why. It is just solid, solid, solid. Okay, axe head's in there, spear's in there. I know I said I was going to go from the bottom, but I kind of changed my mind at the last minute. Okay. Now this piece is one of the pieces that actually goes over the side of the guitar. So I'm not really quite sure. I'm going to have to use this side to set it in there because I'm not quite sure where it's supposed to go because it hangs off the edge. But we're doing real good here. It's looking cool. This is going to be one great inlay. Oops. Get back on there, Huff. Alright, more glue. Coming along okay so far. Doing good. As long as that piece goes in. And it does, beautiful! We're in good shape. We're in real good shape now. Flying right along. Just flying right along. And that's the end of that. Now I just gotta let it dry. Then we have a lot of work to do leveling it out, which will be the next step. I gotta trim all this back, and then I gotta get it all flat. And this is about as ugly as it's ever gonna look. Right here. Right now. But when I'm done, it'll be beautiful. Okay, so we're ready to start leveling this out. And there's a lot of work to do here. Mainly because, you know, like the shell is pretty much right in with the rest of the surface, or very close. But this marble is way, way high, and the wood is way, way high, and all that needs to come down so it's all nice and flat. When we're done, it looks all pretty. And the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of all this extra. See, you know, this big tail just hangs off the edge. Part of the leg hangs off the edge. A little bit of this, I don't know what, spear handle. And we're going to just take that off. I'm using a Dremel. I'm using my digital Dremel, which you've seen me use before. Love this thing. And I'm just going to use that to grind down all of this stuff back to the edge. I'm only going to get close. I don't want to use anything like a power tool to get right down to the wood. That should all be done by hand. But for the taking off the bulk, we're going to use, you know, the Dremel to get rid of the bulk of it. So I've roughed up the outer edge by the border, so I can get ready to trim that down. I'm going to do all that by hand now with files. I've done as much as I plan to do with power tools. But now some of the material is still pretty high, so we're going to grind it down. Okay, now I'm using the files. And I want to show you at least get one little section done, so I'm going to work on this corner here, where the raven is. And I make sure the file is nice and flat. So we only take off the high points. And I go slow, I let the file do the work, I don't apply too much pressure. Because I'm using a great big block of wood with some sandpaper on it, some pretty rough, coarse sandpaper. And we're going to use that to just smooth this out. Take off any little remaining spots of glue. Make sure the surface is all nice and flat. And I think I'm going to come in just a little bit of hand sandpaper and get just the remainder of that glue out of there. Beautiful. Now I got to do some final sanding and some polishing, but that's pretty much the wolf right there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off Odin and come back to the next section.